I quit because I'll fucking get up that day thinking I can't take this anymore. And we get there, and what do we see on center stage on the lineup? 4 tag team matches, we're going to lose every single one of them. So I fucking go into the dressing room Ole used for the office and to give finishes and everything. I said, Ole, I said, why if we post-produce everything now? Bobby couldn't spend a day with his fucking family yesterday because nobody told him he wasn't working. Now we're working 4 times in one night. We couldn't have done 2 of those yesterday. He said the magic words, and I will never forget this, is ingrained in my mind. It was the nicest thing I ever heard. He said, if you don't like it, go home. I said, Ole, that's the best idea you've ever had. I turned around. I said, I'll see you later. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. He said, well, you'll be sorry when you're back in Memphis with that dog and pony show. I said, no, I won't. And I slammed the door. I said, Stan, give me your keys. He said, why? I said, I'm going fucking home. He said, what? I said, I'm done. He said, hold on, I'll go with you. Because he had a paternity suit at the time, and he figured they were going to get some of his money anyway, and he was fed up with these fuckers. But then we both looked at Bobby, and Bobby's got 3 kids, and Bobby's got a wife, and fuck, and so we had the little meeting, and we said, look, it was like the end of Casablanca, we'll all be together again someday or whatever. Because we figured in April, or May, his deal will be up, and I was already probably going to have Smoky Mountain Wrestling well on the way at that point. And he said, guys, I know you got to go. He said, you know I got to stay? I said, yes, we do. So, and we, you know, had the team fucking meeting, and then me and Stan got in the car. I felt like I'd been paroled from prison. I have never had a ride so happy in my life. And Stan started about halfway to Charlotte. He was kind of like, you know, it was $120-something thousand or whatever. I said, fuck it. I quit on more than that. So Bobby said about an hour or 2 later, Ole came to him because he's got 4 fucking matches, right? He said, where are those guys? And Bobby said, Ole, I think they're about halfway back to Charlotte. So when are they coming back? And Bobby said, Ole, I don't think they are. And we didn't. And basically, I sat home for about a week.
I like on the page after the I quit.
Yes.
You're off.
Well, see, we were originally off anyway because that was a day that we were booked off. But look, see here, I've crossed all these out. Right. But real briefly, sat home for about a week and then called me on the phone. Said, well, they sent me this letter first. There's reports to me indicates that there was a misunderstanding involving you and the booker, Ole Anderson. I've had further conversations with people close to you that indicate you've been quoted as saying you will not return to WCW. The company must take the position that if you do not make your scheduled commitment starting on November 1st, blah, 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 you will consider you in breach of your contract and no further monetary compensation will be paid to you. And if you have a desire to try to resolve this issue, please contact me. And he had called and left me a message. So I called him back. I said, Jim, I ain't coming back. I said, and you can give me a release or not. He said, well, I'm not going to just let you go walk right into the WWF. I said, I just got finished with 1 cartoon wrestling promotion. I'm not going to another one. I've got some things I want to do because I knew I was going to Memphis probably to do something short term, and I was going to set up Smoky Mountain. I said, you can send me a release or I'm going to do what I want to do anyway, and you can sue me, and I don't give a fuck. But I'm not going to the WWF, and I'm not coming back there because I'm done with you. You can take that fucking company, shove it up your fucking ass. You've been wanting rid of us. Well, you got rid of us, and I'm rid of you. And I think we're both going to be happier that way. And he sent me a release and never even excluded going to the WWF, which he said he was going to do. But right. I could do anything I wanted, but I wasn't going to the WWF anyway. So he couldn't even write a release right. Fucking moron. I mean, it might have actually been it was better than Captain Mike, I thought, you know, and he got some heat and he had the suit and everything, but basically, you know, Vince just took it and did it much better, IRS.
Right.
So, and Terry, Terry was the makeup girl.
Right.
At TBS, and she was beautiful and gorgeous, and she'd been around the guys long enough to kind of pick up things, and I don't know whose idea it was, but they made her Alexandra York.
Very conservative character, a far cry from what Terry ends up doing in the WWF later.
Well, that's because Shitstain wasn't involved yet.
Which is closer to the real Terry?
I don't know if either one was really close. Terry was you know, a normal person. She wasn't this bitchy, you know, conservative, buttoned-up businesswoman, but she certainly wasn't a cigar-smoking fucking, you know, whatever Marlena was. But Marlena worked a whole lot better. Let's put it. Have you noticed that Vince can take... He turns Mean Mark Callis into The Undertaker. He turns fucking Michael Wall Street into IRS. He turns Alexandra York into Marlena. Vince McMahon could take guys that were right under their fucking nose and just instantly, that's one thing. I mean, and Vince had some misfires too, but it was almost like it was a game where he could take fucking guys that they couldn't draw 15 cents in Chinese money with and make something out of just by tweaking it just a little bit that you would think would have been common sense.
Well, as troubling as it might have been, I thank you for your trip down memory lane. That's for Jim Herd, I guess.
You know he's still alive, don't you?
Not only that, but today...
He's fucking still alive. He looked like he was 80 27 years ago.
Today, we tweeted a page of the script, the page about the Pepsi heart attack.
Yeah.
And I said, guess we'll be talking about Jim Herd tonight with Jim Cornette for Timeline. And somebody retweeted it and tagged Jim Herd.
That's a fake account. It's not really him. On Twitter?
Are you sure about that?
Look it up right now.
We're going to investigate it.
I've seen one that's a rib. It's a fake account.
And we're gonna.
But if it's real, please let me know because I will fucking torment him until the end of time.
We're gonna tweet Jim
If
Herd.
anybody wants to know who the Grinch that stole wrestling was, it's Jim fucking Herd. And if you're in the St. Louis area and you can find that 87-year-old cocksucker, please slap him in the face for me. You know how I was gonna quit before it ended up happening that way? I'll tell you this and I'll let you go.
Do tell.
In the car with the Midnight Express driving up and down the road, I said, boys, I said, when I do quit, I'm going to take a blank pistol, one of those starter's pistols, and I'm going to kick the office door in of that motherfucker's in CNN Center, and I'm going to fire 4 shots at him.
Don't say
that.
I
said I'm going to fire 4 shots at him. You know what Bobby Eaton said? He said, Corny, he said, as many motherfuckers as hates that asshole, don't you think he's got a real one in the top desk drawer? I said, shit, I never thought of that. That's why I didn't do it.
Fake account.
There you go.
No one would say of themselves, former manager of Pizza Hut, head of World Championship Wrestling, recovering alcoholic.
Yeah, because believe me,
not recovering.
He ain't recovering.
Is AWA so far gone by now that we really shouldn't even consider it?
Yeah. Well, they were just
viable
at that point. They were just doing TV tapings, and in a lot of cases, at that point, except for maybe a few people at the top, Larry probably would have been one of those. The deal was if you flew yourself to Las Vegas, you could be on the AWA taping. They weren't even buying guys plane tickets in a lot of cases.
Wow.
So, once again, be the AWA champion was like being the fucking, I guess in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, but, Larry wanted to see out of both eyes.
What'd you think of Larry?
I like Larry. He's funny. He was a great talent in his day. He wasn't the cup of tea of a lot of the smart fans because he was a heel, and he wasn't worried about work rate. He was worried about getting some heat and getting the fucking match over, his stalling and shit, and it worked, and he was master at it. But to this day, he was the biggest drawing house show program and fucking house of all time in the WWF for that thing with Bruno. It was the right place at the right time, fucking masterfully done. Everybody carried off their part. Herd was willing to be sold that, and I'm not knocking Pat O'Connor, but because of his St. Louis connection. Okay, the Pat O'Connor Memorial Tag Team Tournament will mean something, but the fucking teams, read that list of teams.
Take it.
Colonel de Klerk and Sergeant Kruger from South Africa, Rey Mysterio Sr. and Conan from Mexico. Bobby called me one time when they brought Conan in, and I'm Conan, I love you, I'm not knocking you, but Bobby told me, he said, I worked with that fucking Conan. What the fuck? He said, Corny, he shot me off and I hit the ropes. I'm looking and he's doing a forward roll. And he leaped up and he said, you can't, Bobby could not get anything out of him. And, Conan, Mexico's a whole different animal than the United States. Anyway, Chris Adams and Norman Smiley from the UK Rip Morgan and Jack Victory, they're decent. Victor Zangiev, I mean, if that's how you pronounce it, and Hashimakov, they were really legitimate Russians, and had been broke in from Inoki when Inoki got the Russian, sort of like Trump does now, had the Russian connection. And Danny Johnson and Troy Montour from Canada, who I don't know who the fuck. I don't know if anybody else knows what the fuck. So the Steiners won that tournament over Muta and Saito from Japan. So that was one of the most prestigious tournaments in the history of, and
International flavor.
that was Starrcade. We went from Starrcade in Greensboro to that. The fans brought the tickets back they had bought the previous week. That was so fucking bad for a refund. And then Ric Flair was the Black Scorpion.
It was never supposed to be Flair from the beginning, right?
No, it just what the fuck else they gonna do?
Flair cut
Go back to Flair
Yeah, well,
because, you know,
it works.
It's, as Lawler said one time on Memphis TV when the director got fucked up and the shots were, he said, just put the camera on me. It's a safe shot every time. You fucked up, just put Flair in the ring. He'll try to straighten it out.
He cuts his hair here, though.
Well, that was also part of what Hurd insisted. That because Hurd thought, oh no, well, you know, he needed to be Spartacus. He was going to make him a gladiator at one point.
Rick.
Yes. Hurd thought Flair could cut his hair and fucking get a gladiator outfit and be Spartacus. So he cut his hair partially to get under the fucking mask, but also because Hurd wanted him to have an updated look instead of being so fucking old-fashioned. Like cool is somehow dated. With the product that WCW was presenting at that time, to have a working agreement with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which at that time presented wrestling pretty straight as a fucking sport,
Right.
is kind of like, well, I'm going to date myself here by saying, but Vanessa Del Rio, a famous porn star working with Mother Teresa. You know, Vanessa Del Rio, whose famous line in one of the movies was, "My asshole wants to suck cock," should be tag team partners with Mother Teresa. That's what WCW and New Japan working agreement was like. And then,
did you ever borrow for your promos from Vanessa?
When you borrow from one thing, it's plagiarism. When you borrow from many, it's research. December 29, 1990, Tom Zink wins the TV title over Arn Anderson.
Yeah, what do you have to say about that?
Why not?
So if you had to sum up the year of 1990 in your entire career, were lessons learned at least? I mean,
I made a lot of money. I made a lot of money, and I've never been more miserable in my life.
Yeah.
And it was the 1989 WCW. You can look back on as there was Flair and Steamboat, and they still had some of the talent, and the fans were still willing to work with them and give them a chance. 1990 is the year where Jim Herd destroyed WCW, its talent roster, and its fan base to the point where, for the next 6 years, because remember, it wasn't until 1997, right, that WCW made a profit. So basically, for 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, and most of 96, Vince McMahon had an unobstructed chance to be basically be professional wrestling in the United States. So when you look back in history, that was a lead that was insurmountable, and Bischoff did it for a couple of years. They made a profit when he took the NWO and and did that whole thing. Didn't know how to follow up on it, couldn't sustain it. But Vince had pretty much from the time that Turner Broadcasting bought Crockett out in 1988 until late 96, early 97, no competition whatsoever. The opponents were jokes, wide open field. He became wrestling in the United States. By 1997, he was even drawn in the Carolinas. WWF Wrestling never drew in the Carolinas, in Tennessee, in Georgia, or certain parts of Texas because they were used to good wrestling. That ended because a generation passed. So if you want to talk about who won the wrestling war and why, ultimately it comes down to Jim Herd starting the path for WCW to not be any competition for that 8 years. That they gave Vince an 8-year head start. It was impossible to catch up. Jim Herd is the reason why that we now have sports entertainment instead of pro wrestling. And 1990 was the year that cemented that.